Good afternoon, hello again, and welcome to our session, Big Ideas to Change the Midlands. My name is Shalina Begum, Business Desk Northwest Editor, and your chair for this session. So big changes require big ideas, and the Midlands has plenty of them. We have invited a selection of change makers to unveil their vision of the Midlands of the future and how they're working towards achieving this aim and long-term transformation. First up is Christopher Ware. Chris is director of the Conygar investment company. He has been instrumental in advancing the Island Quarter site in Nottingham city centre, which was granted planning permission last September. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, massive big development in the middle of the city centre. I've seen CGIs of it. It looks very, very impressive. Just tell us a bit more about the Island Quarter. It's a huge development. Tell us about the scale of the plans and, how long has this been in the planning?
Yes, thank you. The Island Quarter itself was the former Boots HQ. It's been derelict for some 25 years, and in that way, it's a really sort of unique opportunity to find a cleared city centre site, 2 minutes walk from the train station that's been undeveloped for such a long time. Really the city of Nottingham has grown around it, in fact. And as you say, we, as of last year, have a planning permission for 2.8 million square feet of mixed-use development. And we sort of truly believe that sort of mixed-use development is the future of real estate. That's the way all of these big city centre sites are going to go. The days of having an office zone which is dead at 6 o'clock on a Friday night have long gone. And so what we're trying to create is a really sort of mixed use place where people can live, work and play as well. So we are on site now. We've started with the first phase and what we're doing is really trying to open up the canal which runs adjacent to our site. And I think in Nottingham and indeed in many other UK cities, canals have been really ignored and we're trying to sort of bring that back. I think it'd be a great place-making piece. And the first restaurant phase should be open in March next year.
And you've got hotels, you've got residential there, office space there as well.
Absolutely. So it's a truly mixed-use scheme. We have hotel accommodation, we have IHG to manage that. We have both short stay and long stay space there. We have residential accommodation, we have student accommodation, we have office space and a variety of types of a flexible space, and then the more traditional sort of larger floor plates as well as leisure space, restaurants, cafes, bars. So I think we are really going for a really truly unique scheme.
And obviously, this was started before the pandemic, the plans for it. And as we've gone over through the last year, a scheme like this seems even more important to the recovery for the region, for Nottingham. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I think from our point of view, the COVID pandemic is probably more of a sort of evolution as opposed to revolution in terms of our plans. I think we always felt that sort of bringing high quality green space in particular into Nottingham city centre was a key part of redeveloping it. But I suppose really the last year has really sort of shown to us just how important that is and how much people value that green open space around them. And I think we've all sort of found that over the last year, haven't we? But I think some of the things haven't really changed. I think our view that space needs to be more flexible in the future, that hasn't changed. I think really just COVID has accentuated that fact. I think the idea of the 15-minute city, the fact that you want to be able to not be spending hours commuting, you want to be able to walk to your place of work, walk to restaurants, cafes, bars, medical facilities, etc. So I don't think that's really changed. I think that idea sort of existed before COVID. I think just COVID has given it a lot more impetus. And I suppose in many ways we were lucky that we'd not really started on the ground yet. And we're able to really sort of reevaluate our plans and make sure we were future-proofing the site as much as we can.
Yeah, and I guess future-proofing the future of the city centre as well. Do you feel like, when retail is in decline, you need developments like this to make sure that city centre is still buzzing, it's still attracting people and jobs and businesses?
Absolutely. I think sort of our view is very much the city centres are not dead. People still want to be there. People still want to go out. They want to see their friends, meet for coffee, meet for drinks, etc. So it's just an evolution really of the city centre. And the retail has changed, but it won't go away completely. It'll be far more experience-led retail. And as I said, far more probably sort of restaurant, cafe, bar space as well. But that's hugely important for Nottingham and indeed for cities across the country as well.
And how challenging has it been to get this development off the ground during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, it hasn't been the easiest year, but on the other hand, I think it's been very good for us to really sort of sit down and focus on what exactly we want to achieve here and what would be best for the city and for the region as a whole. And I think with our mind, we've got a very sort of long-term mindset. So from our point of view, it didn't actually matter that in many ways that COVID was going on. We wanted to start on site, and we have done, and we've started during the pandemic, which has actually been fine. And actually, I think it'll put us in a much better position coming out of it now, because we're ahead of where many other developments would be who might have stalled.
So you started the first phase, you mentioned. I mean, what is the sort of time frame for the site?
Yes. So, I mean, as I said, we started with the first phase, which should be ready in sort of March next year. The site as a whole, I think, will probably take 8 to 10 years to come forward, depending, of course, on the demand for the space.
And what's been the interest from your sort of businesses and residents in Nottingham? Are they really excited about it? And it's one of the largest developments in the city at the moment.
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time, speaking to the people of Nottingham, businesses of Nottingham, and there's huge support for this. I mean, the site as a whole has been vacant, I said, for 25 years. I think there's a real feeling that there's been a missed opportunity in the past to make something happen here. And so the general feeling from the people of the city are just let's get on with this. Let's make this happen. We want jobs. We want a place where we can visit with our friends, our family. We want better connectivity. I mean, the site itself is really a blight on the city. The linkages then to the east of the city are impaired as a result of it. So there's huge support, and we're glad we're sort of harnessing that and bringing that energy to the site.
So it's going to act like a catalyst for the rest of the city and wider region then? Absolutely.
I mean, I think Nottingham probably reflects sort of the Midlands as a whole, in that there's a huge amount of going on there. I mean, Nottingham as a whole has seen its number of knowledge-intensive businesses increase by 400% in the last decade. Its patents per capita rate is much higher than much bigger cities like Glasgow or Manchester. But what's really been lacking is that supply. Where do these sort of young entrepreneurs live? Where do they work once they've finished university? So we truly believe that the demand, is there, and we are going to provide the supply. And I think with that comes businesses growing, graduate retention improves, and I think really that halo effect that's going to encourage inward investment into both Nottingham and indeed the wider Midlands region.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Chris. I think that's all we've got time with you, Chris. Sounds like a really exciting project. I'm looking forward to seeing it one day. Thanks a lot.
Please come along. Thank you.
Right. Can I introduce our next speaker, who's Liz Draper. She is Head of Corporate Partnerships at Coventry City of Culture Trust. And for those who don't know, Coventry City of Culture started this month and is showcasing the best of the city's arts, culture, and its people. Welcome, Liz.
Thanks, Shalina.
Yes, so the celebration actually started not too long ago. Just tell us a bit more about what's been happening and what have you achieved so far?
Well, yes, we're right at the start of the year, really. So we've got 365 days stretching ahead of us of really exciting cultural activity in Coventry. But we actually won the UK City of Culture title back in 2017. So there's been sort of 5 years of really hard work since then. And the beauty of the City of Culture model is that there isn't sort of a master plan or a blueprint. When you win the title, you just have a blank slate, and it's kind of up to you to fill that with a year of activity, which really reflects the city and its people and its history and also the challenges that face it. So since then, we've been essentially undertaking a massive community engagement programme, and we've been working with artists, venues, community groups, businesses, faith spaces, charities, and so on, just to get a really good understanding of what the people of Coventry want to get from the year, and then working with them and supporting them to make that a reality. So kind of a number of themes have come out of that work, which will be reflected throughout our year. So thinking of themes like innovation, obviously thinking of Coventry's long history as a city of invention and a city of pioneers. So people like James Starley and the invention of the bicycle, and right through to sort of the technologies of the future and looking at places like the UK Battery Industrialisation Centre. Another theme is youthfulness. So Coventry is demographically a really young city. It's 8 years younger than the national average. So that'll reflect in opportunities for young people to get involved in the programme, but also kind of a spirit of youthfulness throughout all of our work. And social action is going to be really key as well. So we know that an arts festival with the best will in the world is not going to fix problems like homelessness, but what we do want is for the year to reflect and involve people with lived experience of those kinds of things and some of the more challenging issues facing the city. And then, of course, yeah, there's been a massive amount of recruitment and fundraising and operational planning going on to sort of lay the groundwork for the year. Yeah. So really all that is to just kind of make sure that the programme that you will see in Coventry over the next year couldn't have come from anywhere else, and it really reflects kind of the people and the history and heritage of the city. Yeah.
So it's been, quite a long time in the planning. I mean, and then the pandemic hit. I mean, has that been challenging to try to get this programme, started in May after the year that we've all had?
Yes, it has not been an easy time to be working in the major events industry. I actually, my previous role was doing exactly the same job on Hull's year as UK City of Culture back in 2017. And when I took this role, one of my worries was, oh, well, what if I'm just going to be living the same 4 years again? But the pandemic has certainly put a spanner in that. But I suppose, as Christopher was saying, we were quite lucky that it hit when it did. If our year had been in 2020, it would have been significantly more impactful on our planning. As it is, we've had a year really to adjust and change our plans to make sure that we're still achieving the outcomes that we set out to achieve, and we're still involving all of the people of Coventry. So last summer we went through a really big stakeholder engagement programme, speaking to everybody across the city to understand, right, what is the impact that this is going to have on the year, and how can we make sure that we still deliver what we set out to do. And one of the big changes that came from that is that we were due to start the year on the 1st of January. Obviously, that wouldn't have been possible in the sort of restrictions we were under then. So we moved the start of the year to May. And that proved to be a good decision, because as things are looking now, I think we're going to be in a good position over the summer to move ahead with our plans.
Yeah, and I guess people's appetite for this kind of festival is even more sort of, I don't know, I guess they're hungrier now than they were maybe over a year ago.
I think that's a silver lining to it, yeah, absolutely, is that people over the last year have really remembered the value of all of this and why arts and culture is important, and the fact that we've all been sort of cooped up in our homes. I think certainly for our tourism and our visitor targets, that's going to be really helpful, because we'll be one of the first major events back in the UK, and we'll be able to kind of scoop up all of those audiences. So yeah, and especially as well with the looking ahead to the rest of the year, it probably looks like there won't be a large amount of international travel. So we'll have a great market there with sort of domestic tourism as well. We'll be quite strong on that front, we hope.
Yeah, and for every city and every region, culture is really important. How can culture be transformative for a city and a region? And you're already playing quite a big part into that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we know from past cities of culture and European capitals of culture that these programmes do have a sort of major economic and social impact on the cities that host them. So we've set out a number of KPIs for what we want our year to achieve. So some of these are economic, so particularly focusing on tourism, boosting the visitor economy in the city. So we want to attract 2.5 million extra visitors over the course of the year. And we estimate that will have a direct economic impact of about £350 million. We have some sort of more targeted programmes, such as directly supporting 200 hospitality businesses in the city to make the most of the economic opportunity of the year. But there's also the social element of it as well, and I think that's also even more important in the wake of COVID. We want to support and encourage 80% of the city's residents to take part in at least 3 events. Because we know that taking part in arts and culture on a regular basis can have a really big impact on skills development for children and young people, but also on things like mental health, community cohesion, and all of that kind of thing. So I think that, as I say, that social impact is going to be more important now than ever, really.
Yeah, and this is, it's for the whole city. Has it been challenging to get, communities from across the city involved, making sure that the festival is representative of the people that live in Coventry?
It's not been challenging, I wouldn't say, but we have tried really hard to make sure that we do that, and it's not just a festival that represents kind of the usual suspects or the people who would already take part in arts and culture. So we've got, for example, we've got dedicated producers who work in each ward of the city, and they're responsible for engaging with the community groups in that part of the city. So in that way, we've been able to kind of get a really good geographic spread and identify any pockets where we're kind of underachieving in our community engagement work. And we also have producers who are working really closely with third sector organisations in the city. So people like the Positive Youth Foundation working with young people at risk of criminal exploitation, and Grapevine, who work with people with mental health issues. So that kind of thing has really enabled us to draw on the existing networks that are here in the city and make sure that the beneficiaries of those networks are involved in the programme too.
Yes, there's a lot of collaboration going on then, isn't there?
Absolutely,
yeah.
You can't do this kind of thing alone.
Yeah. Just tell us, for people who might not know, what sort of events can they expect to look forward to?
Oh, well, even if I have the full 8 minutes, I don't think we can talk through them all. But I'll pick out a few highlights. So there'll be massive major events. Some of them will be sort of reimagined on what you might think a major event looks like just in the times that we're in. So our first one will be an event called Coventry Moves, which is taking place on June the 5th. And this is our kind of big signature event to kick off the year. Unlike a normal opening ceremony, it's not going to gather X thousand people together in a stadium or in the city centre. In fact, it's designed to be experienced from your own home and in your own neighbourhood. So there'll be an announcement tomorrow actually about ways that individual people can get involved with that. But yeah, keep an eye out for that one. We're also bringing some big names in the arts world to the West Midlands for the first time. So the Turner Prize is coming to the Herbert Art Gallery in Coventry City Centre from October the 1st. Another big one is we've just announced a new venture called Assembly Festival Gardens, which will be a new festival hub venue right in the city centre, working with a company called Assembly, who are really famous for their work with the Edinburgh Festival. And yeah, we've got tons more to be announced over the course of the summer as well.
Thanks, Liz. I'm afraid that's all we've got time with you now, but yeah, quite an exciting festival. And if you've not already put your name down for anything, please do so. And yeah, sounds really exciting. Thanks very much, Liz.
Thanks, Selena.
Right, so I want to welcome our next speaker, who is Matheu Parr, Customer Business Director for Rolls-Royce Electrical, a newly formed business within Rolls-Royce, and he is leading its highly specialised charge to build the world's fastest all-electric aircraft. No pressure then, Matheu.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah. I mean, what an exciting project to be involved in. Just tell us a bit more about the electric aircraft.
So it's an absolutely fantastic project. So for the past 3 years, Rolls-Royce has been leading the charge to build the world's fastest electric plane, and then to go race that plane in the UK later this year and set and hold that record, hopefully for quite a long time. So really, the project's been about inspiring innovation. So it's been about sort of recognizing that the clearly aviation benefits us all, whether it's travel or trade. But as we look forwards, we need to be thinking more about sustainable aviation, sustainable travel. And one of the key components to that, of course, is continuing to invest in gas turbines, which we make in Derby, continuing to invest in sustainable aviation fuels, but equally sort of disruptive technology like electrification. And hey, what better way to go and show what capabilities exist in the Midlands in terms of electrical engineering than going away and creating the world's fastest electric plane.
And this is all set for later this year?
Yeah, so we should, the aircraft is finished. We've got our last week of ground sort of testing next week. And then we're going to be packing the aircraft up, moving locations somewhere a bit more suitable for going record running. And then, yeah, we should have, hopefully, middle of this year, have the record and be good to proudly shout about that quite a bit.
And how fast is it expected to go?
So the aircraft will go more than 300 miles an hour. So the current record is 210 miles an hour, which is set by Siemens, who set it back in 2017. There was an American gentleman who set it a number of years earlier at 200 miles an hour, and we were desperate not to go 220 or 230. Somebody else would beat us, so we're going to go 300 plus, and really have something very sort of proud and fantastic to be able to publicise and hopefully get people inspired in what electric aviation could really unlock.
Yeah. And for the region, it's quite a big deal, isn't it? You know, you've had the talent and the skills to be able to build that, and that says quite a lot for the Midlands.
It does. It does. So we've been pulling on a lot of investment that's been made in automotive historically. So sort of Tracker Land Rover, these sort of companies, they're about 10 years ahead of aviation and all the investment they've made. And we've had this great ability to go and kind of work with the best of the talent in the region to quickly think about what could we put into an aircraft to go break a record, and really kind of accelerate our path to creating this plane. So lots of great talent that we've been able to pull out of sort of existing Rolls-Royce and how we do aerospace engineering, but equally lots of talent outside sort of within institutes and Warwick Manufacturing Group, etc., where we able to get some great people together to go achieve this. It's a very small team. It's about 20 people, but really drawing a lot of experience together. And
you've got the rest of the UK looking at you, but I guess globally they're looking at what you're doing as well.
So this will be a global record. So we'll go proudly claim this for the UK, but it's a record that we'll say hopefully that'll last quite a while. But it hasn't just been about sort of the innovation for speed. It's been about the kind of the technology that we hope to be able to move into other markets as well. So Stuart Booth, who's following me, is going to talk a little about sort of urban air mobility and city ports. The technology we're developing in this aircraft is exactly the same technology that we want to use in those urban air mobility, those air taxis. So it's the exact sort of battery you want to enable those aircraft to take off vertically and fly around cities, and it's the exact sort of ground infrastructure that you need to recharge these aircraft safely and kind of get people fast turnaround and on the way to their journeys. So it's a focus on speed, but it's equally a focus on efficiency, on zero emissions, on reducing the noise, and of course doing that all in a safe manner, because we all want to get on these air taxis eventually in a really safe way, not thinking it's going to be any more dangerous than sort of we just did in our car.
And in point, it's all about fits into this zero emissions agenda and the low carbon agenda, and that's been quite important. I mean, Sir John Peace earlier this morning was talking about the green revolution, and this is part of it.
Absolutely. So from an aviation perspective, we see in the next 5 to 10 years lots of opportunities for much more sustainable travel. So whether it's kind of a small sort of 2 to 4 seat plane or an air taxi, all of that can be fully electrified, and you can basically remove the carbon out of those aircraft platforms completely. Now, as the aircraft start to get bigger, it is about how do you do hybrid aircraft, and equally it's about thinking about alternative fuels, as sustainable aviation fuels or hydrogen, and there's a very long future for the jet engine, just because of the sort of the chemistry and how much energy you can get into a battery today. But it's a real strong focus, particularly in the Midlands, in investing in sustainable aviation technology, and of course, as you said before, exporting that to the whole world.
And what are the wider benefits of this, not just for the region, but for the UK and globally?
So for the UK, we're creating quite a unique skill set. So when we started this project of building the electric plane, there wasn't an engineering expertise, there wasn't a supply chain, there wasn't an infrastructure. We've had to create all of that over the past few years to be able to sort of to take the record attempt, and we take all that learning back into sort of our aviation home base in Derby, and to sort of start to think about what it means for future aircraft. And then a great skill set that we're then selling to the rest of the world. But it's fundamentally, Rolls-Royce is completely aligned now to delivering sustainable aviation a whole in the most efficient way we can. And this is a great flagship program for us, just to go highlight what's possible.
I'm assuming that green skills and the sort of training around that'll be shared across providers in the UK. So that's always a positive, isn't it?
It absolutely flows through the whole supply chain. So fundamentally, it's when we start to look at these aircraft, there's just systems and components that we're designing for the first time, and then need people to help us iterate and design and manufacture those. So it sounds mundane, but it's literally down to the wiring and the connectors. They don't exist. Somebody's got to make that. And there's just great skill set in the Midlands from automotive that we're able to bring across. So hopefully lots of jobs being created as we start to think about green aviation. And equally, I'm most excited about sort of just being able to travel in these new ways. So the idea of being able to kind of get into an air taxi and hop over a city to get to my destination rather than sitting in traffic all day long just sounds incredible. So they sort of the way it's going to unlock the way we can travel in a more sustainable way is one of the things that gets me going to work every day anyway.
Yeah, well, unlocking green aviation, that's definitely the future, and it's a pioneering project and really exciting. And thank you so much for your time, Matheu, which brings us neatly onto our next speaker, Stuart Bloomfield, who is Chief Development Officer for Urban Airport. They're behind the Air One port in Coventry and about to launch it later this year.
That's correct.
Hi, Stuart.
Hello. First of all, can I say thank you to Matheu? That was an absolutely perfect setup, and obviously a very, very exciting, not just project, but new industry that he's at the forefront of. So yeah, thank you very much for sort of setting up what we do. We at Urban Airport Limited are developing the world's first fully operational urban airport, which will be deployed in Coventry at the end of this year, end of 2021. It's a airport for vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, but it also acts as an intermodal hub between transport infrastructure. So it will also have not only electronic vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, but also it will support EVs, electronic scooters, etc. So it is it's a hub for intermodal transport connection.
Another pioneering hub for the region then. What's the wider implication for that, not just in the Midlands, but outside of the region and possibly globally?
Well, being a world first, obviously, is definitely something that we can be proud of. We're supported by the government through the Future Flight Challenge, which is has given us a grant for the development of the first urban airport, or towards it. But urban air mobility is something which is going to be really one of the most important subjects that we will be discussing, I think, in the next few years. It's really about to really try to avoid saying take off, because it's such a pun. But it is going to take off very much. I mean, obviously, Mathew's just told you the timelines that they're working towards in terms of their vehicle, which is not exactly, as I understand from his presentation, the type of air taxi that we will be supporting, certainly in terms of the speed. But the air taxi industry is growing hugely worldwide and throughout the UK, and they will be in the next few years deployed throughout our cities and across the country. What we are able to do through the infrastructure that we're developing is support not just the air taxi industry, which is growing, but also urban logistics, which will be unmanned autonomous logistics drones doing deliveries throughout our cities, taking vans off the road, obviously in a zero emission way. And then the third use is disaster emergency management or disaster emergency response. So they're three different markets within the same air mobility umbrella, which can be supported from a single urban airport, such as we'll be demonstrating in Coventry, or as it develops in the future, they will be developed as specific urban airports for those specific uses. And eventually there will be a network of the new infrastructure throughout all of our cities and across the country. So as Matheu said, you'll be able to take an air taxi within the city. You'll also be able to take air taxis regionally. So where there may not be direct connections already existing through, for instance, the railway network, or even in support of the railway network. So there will be regional travel and transport for passengers, initially piloted, but then eventually leading towards autonomous vehicles. And the separate cargo industry will also grow to take a large section of the existing logistics and cargo industry and take some of those delivery vans off our road. So when we were talking about at the beginning the development in Nottingham, there is a very valid use case for reducing the number of road vehicles that are obviously traditional carbon burning road vehicles coming into a development like that in the centre of Coventry through the deployment of air mobility.
Sounds very futuristic, doesn't it? I mean, how far in the future are we talking about?
Well, it's not so futuristic. I mean, drones have been around a long time, the small drones that everybody's used to. In terms of the cargo drones, the larger ones are already flying, and they are the technology is demonstrated. It's been used in lots of live use cases. What isn't existing at the moment, and what we will be developing through the Air One program in Coventry, is what we're terming air architecture. So that's the routes throughout the city and the country that the vehicles will have to stick to in order to be safe and therefore regulated and certified. So the actual technology for the vehicles is not really that far away. What we are developing through the Coventry programme is what needs to be done by the cities and the local authorities and the national government in order to be able to form that air architecture and therefore fill out the remainder of the jigsaw. So you have the vehicles, you have the infrastructure, which we're developing, and then you have obviously the actual operational side and the regulation.
And sort of touched on this with Matheu earlier. This again sort of fits into the green agenda in the UK, and upskilling and green skills. Do we have the skills network and the talent to be able to achieve this? Yeah,
of course, in terms of the Midlands being a traditional powerhouse for manufacturing and for transport, the skills already exist. We won't only be providing manufacturing jobs in the future. There will be jobs for people involved in the operations, both the ground operations and the air operations. And then there will be a lot of related jobs that are related to this new type of infrastructure. As you can imagine, if you put in a new transport node into a part of a city or throughout the city in a combined coordinated network, you'll have a large number of supply industries which are related to the network in terms of supplying whatever is needed, operating the grounds, not ground staff, but the operational staff within the airport itself. So yeah, we've the skills already. There's a huge number of companies already in the UK and throughout the world. I think the recent count from I think it was NASA said that there's over 300 eVTOL companies in development worldwide at the moment. So this technology will come along quite quickly. And in terms of a date, I can give you for air taxis, the first companies that are looking to actually do live flights are aiming for around 2024, 2025. And
your airport is going to be ready. Is it by the end of the year?
It will be, yeah. It's a fully operational demonstrator. So it will be operating from November into December in Coventry. You won't be able to take an air taxi, obviously, because there's no regulation to allow that. But we will be demonstrating dynamic flights of drones. There'll be, excuse me, obviously unmanned cargo drones. But it will also demonstrate and allow anybody that wants to come along and collaborate with us to learn how these are going to work in the future, how they will connect into the city, how they will interconnect to the existing infrastructure and transport infrastructure within the city. So it's actually a possibility for anybody that's listening that wants to participate. That would be something that we'd be very interested to hear from people about.
Yeah, and do you feel like you've had support from the sort of public sector in doing something so innovative like this?
Yeah, we're supported by, as I say, through the UK government, through the Future Flight Challenge, and then we have also a partner in Hyundai Air Mobility Group, who are also partly funding this. But the important thing to mention when I say the name Hyundai is that they and us are very clear from the beginning that this infrastructure has to be agnostic for all of the manufacturers that are building vehicles for the moment, for the market at the moment, because obviously it cannot be restricted to a single supplier, a single vehicle operator, or a single vehicle developer. It needs to be an interconnected system and interconnected network that allows all of the eVTOLs that are being developed at the moment to land and take off from the infrastructure.
It sounds very, very exciting. Are there any other plans for this to spread across the UK, or are we still going to see how it develops in Coventry first?
No, after Coventry, we then would like to begin discussions with other local authorities throughout the West Midlands, but obviously we would not be restricted only to the Midlands. Yeah, we would then like to participate in further demonstrations, a little bit more ambitious than what we're doing in Coventry, perhaps with actually dynamic flights between A and B. So that will all develop over the next few years, and the long-term aim is that we will deploy 200 urban airports in the next 5 years.
Oh, amazing. Right, well, that's all we've got time for with Stuart. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the rest of our panelists. Some very, very exciting things coming out from the Midlands, from electric aircraft to the airport, to exciting developments, and culture and arts is also playing a part of it. Thank you again for your time today. We are here for another hour or two, so please do explore the networking and expo sessions. See you later.